Hi everyone, welcome to The Routers Season 2. We hope you've had a great summer break and we're delighted to bring you all new episodes of our UQCS student podcast. Today we have Jodie and Tanvir from Atlassian to tell us all about their journey to and their life in Atlassian's security team. Hello, Tanvir and Jodie. How are you both?
Good, thank you. How are you, Matthew?
I'm great.
Yeah, doing well, Matthew.
That's good. I just thought it'd be good to start to let you two introduce yourselves and what you do.
Cool, I'll go first. So hi everyone. My name is Jodie Vlassis and I am a Senior Trust Analyst on the Atlassian security team. So I currently work in the Trust and Security team based here in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Tanvir Ahmed. I also work in Atlassian in product security team. I'm here senior product security engineer. I'm pretty new to Atlassian over like 8 to 9 months now. And then working on product team. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. So I guess I'll start by asking, what's a typical day at work like for both of you? A lot of students are interested in entering cybersecurity, but they kind of don't know what's involved, what's the day-to-day. So I guess, Jodie, if you want to elaborate on what your day at work is like.
Yeah, for sure. So here at Atlassian, we have a small function that sits within the wider security team, and we're called the Trust and Security team. So the easiest way to explain what we do is we're essentially a small team that sits within the security team, and we're essentially cybersecurity SMEs. That's pretty much the bridge between the customers and the security team. And what we do, we do quite a lot of things, but I guess in the day of what we do is we work quite closely with customers around if customers have specific security related questions. In regards to our products or to our solutions, we generally provide that support to a number of our support teams. We also provide a lot of support to other teams within the organisation. So we work quite closely with the risk and compliance team to obtain certain certifications for our products. We also work closely with our privacy and our reliability team as well. There's also a little bit of marketing that's involved with what we do. We like to showcase and highlight a lot of the really cool things that we do with the Atlassian security team, and we want to showcase that to our customers. And through that, we build, transparency through security within our products.
Tanvir, did you want to, talk about yours? You're coming from a product security background, so a bit different.
Yeah. So I'm in a product security team, which is a bit different than what Jodie is in. We are in the same cybersecurity or information security umbrella, but our roles is a bit different. So we in product security, it encompasses to end-to-end security responsibilities for Atlassian's products. As most of you are aware that we are a software companies. So our day-to-day, is like selling software basically, right? So we help development teams find, fix, prevent, or disclose security vulnerabilities. Our typical day would include like checking on our public bug bounty to ensure that there is no sort of securities reported from the public bug bounty sites. We are on bug route, and then doing some internal product security reviews for our products, working on security automation projects. Each one of our product security engineers are assigned to certain Atlassian products. So basically, we are kind of a subject matter expert on some on our assigned products. So, for example, each product security engineers will be subject matter expert for one or two, for example, Atlassian products. So we are closely work with those teams to make sure their security is security posture for that product is good, for example.
Interesting. So it seems both of you are really into security. I guess the next question I wanted to ask is, what was your journey to the field of cybersecurity as a whole? Like, how did you get to Atlassian as well?
Yeah. it's a lot. It's a long. My journey is probably a little bit unique. I guess it's not your traditional journey into the cybersecurity world. So I guess I was quite exposed, to coding and programming at a super young age. I used to watch my brother do a lot of programming way back in the day. I think I was about 12 years old. Try not to give my age away too much. And I used to watch him, and I used to say, "Oh my God, I'd love to learn how to do that." I guess choosing a different career path in life, I somehow managed to come back into cybersecurity. So my journey, I guess, was I eventually went back to uni as a mature age student, and I ended up studying for about 8.5 years. Now, my background is not technically cybersecurity. I didn't do a traditional computer science degree. However, I would like to think I'm a pretty good product of and a pretty good example that you don't need to do a computer science degree to get into cybersecurity. So not to say that you don't need a computer science degree. You definitely do if you do work in a more technical programming background. Prior to joining Atlassian, I actually came from Big Four professional services. So I actually came from Deloitte, where I was delivering and uplifting cybersecurity products and cybersecurity needs for clients. A lot of my work is a pretty big intersection of IT, business, and risk, and I was able to assist a number of clients to develop and implement strategies, roadmaps, operating models, assess current states, and develop governance and policies within a client's organization. How I came to Atlassian, and I say this with such high importance that, it's really important that you need to network within this industry, because the reason why I got this job was because of networking. I actually went to a cybersecurity women's related event and, just went and introduced myself. And, I wasn't really looking for a job at the time, but it just, it doesn't hurt to say hello and introduce yourself. And then 3 months later, I was offered a job. So that's sort of how I came to Atlassian.
Sounds amazing. And I guess Tanvir, did you want to talk about your journey as well?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career in sort of cybersecurity, even though I wasn't really keen, planning on doing it. So I started very briefly as a developer, but then I quickly moved into security sort of after graduation. I'm not even also from a computer science background. I'm more of an engineering background, even though I did a lot of programming and stuff in my university. So cybersecurity back then, it was a while ago, probably 9 years ago, I started my career. It was not as popular as it is today, for example. But once I started doing, I started in this career path, it seems to be quite interesting. And I saw a very good career prospect as well. So that's why I started pursuing the path. And over the years, I had many different roles within information security, as we used to call it, and even though some organization call it, within various different industry sectors as well. So, for example, from banking, financial industries, consulting, and now, for example, over here in software companies. So it's actually a very good it gives a very good idea around how the cybersecurity functions work within organizations, since I was working in very different industry sectors and very few different functions as well. Not, for example, just product security that I'm currently working on, in few other related domains that I was working. So it gave me a very good holistic approach around how security works in an organization. Regarding a journey to Atlassian, so as I mentioned, I'm pretty still new, learning. It's only been 9 months now, but I applied through the Atlassian job site, through LinkedIn, basically, because I'm new to Australia as well, in Sydney. I've been only here for less than 2 years now. So I don't have that much of, for example, networking opportunities, for example, as Jodie mentioned. So still pretty new here. So I applied through the portal, and then had a very good, experience, seamless experience. We now started with seamless remote onboarding, because since I joined Atlassian, I never got to work in the office. So it was all remote onboarding experience, which is really fantastic. And it's a very seamless journey. And I'm really pleased with my with how Atlassian is going so far. It's very. I'm quite impressed with the team cultures and how we collaborate with different teams within the organization. Is really good so far.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think Atlassian's known for their kind of team culture all around the company. I guess another thing I wanted to ask is, I guess this is a really good question as well now, because I know both of you are not from strictly computer science backgrounds, but a lot of our listeners are currently university students, or might not even be university, they might just be graduates. But if they're interested in entering cybersecurity, are there any topics or like different things that you think that they should focus on learning about?
Good question. I think Tanvir and I might have different responses to this, which is really good, right?
Yeah.
Because we want a bit of diversity and variety in different approaches to this. So I guess I can only really talk from experience from what I've gone through. So as I previously mentioned, I actually don't hold a technical degree, i.e. like a computer science degree. I guess if the listeners want to know what topics they think they should focus on, I think ideally what worked for me was doing a couple of units that were cybersecurity specific, but were very like broad learnings, right? So, and what I mean by that is they're not specific or they're not too specific or too technical enough. It was more somewhat of a beginner/intermediate introductory to cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is just such a huge industry, right? Like you can really just go down a rabbit hole and then all of a sudden you're sort of, neck deep into application security or vulnerability management or, coding or whatever, right? I think the one thing that I want to stress to people is that you don't need to have a technical background or technical degree to get into cybersecurity. I think as an individual, you should sort of start with knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are and sort of do your research and see what really interests you. A lot of people sort of freak out or are quite surprised when I say I studied for like 8.5, 9 years. And the reason for that is because I was really passionate. And when you're really passionate about something, the learning comes quite easy to you. So, do your research and see what really interests you. I get asked a lot of questions about, should individuals consider taking on postgraduate, so degrees like masters or postgraduate or PhDs. I guess it's just each to their own. I guess it's up to a situational circumstance. It's up to where you sort of are at in life. I think for me as a mature age student, I felt like in my own personal situation, for me, in order to stand out, I chose to do a master's degree because I did want to stand out. I knew that I was going to be going up a lot of individuals that were probably a little bit younger than me and probably a little bit smarter than me, but I sort of wanted to stand out from the rest and go, you know what, I'm going to do a master's degree. Also study the market and the industry that you'd like to work in as well. My background was I went into Deloitte as a graduate, and I say this to a lot of my mentees. I say, the best way to gain as much experience as possible is starting in a graduate or an internship role, because it gives you the opportunity to learn so much and to ask so many questions and really be a sponge and really experience all the different areas of security. And the last thing that I want to sort of suggest and mention as well is, you might be studying an engineering degree like Tanvir, for example. With security, I think the unique thing about working in the cybersecurity world is your attributes and your skills that you have are so easily transferable into the cybersecurity world. Identify and look at what your uniqueness is to the industry and see how you can transfer that into the cybersecurity world, because I can guarantee you there is always a spot for anyone in the security world. It's such a unique industry that we work in that you can pretty much bring any type of skill set into our world and really apply it.
Yeah. It certainly sounds like cybersecurity has so many different opportunities. And I know a lot of our listeners and students and things like that all want to explore their own different, paths. So it's good to know that cybersecurity allows for all those different things
Absolutely.
to, kind of be applied to something. Tanvir, do you have any thoughts on like topics to focus on, or just like things to learn about?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jodie in that sense that, find out what area of cybersecurity or in any career, so to say, in IT or in any other field, for example, you are interested in, and then pursuing it. Because, you don't want to be like just going around and say, oh, okay, I just want to work in cybersecurity. It's finding out that interest, what interests you, and then, and then go forward for it, and then try to learn knowledge or gain knowledge in that area where you are interested in. I think that will help you, progress a much more focused way of going. But having said that, a lot of the knowledge, for example, while you started working, you are definitely not going to get it from the textbooks or in the, or be learned in a classroom, right? So a lot of the knowledge that you will be getting is through what Jodie mentioned while you're doing an internship, or when you are doing for example, when you're actually working. So just, bear that in mind, for example. But anyways, having said that, cybersecurity, as most of university students or anyone in that sense, I always think about, cybersecurity is mostly about hacking a company. When we see on the movies, a hacker, trying to, wear on a hoodie, exactly, wear on a hoodie and try to hack into a computer. But that's not the case, right?
Well,
as you know.
If you work at Atlassian, you will definitely be wearing a hoodie. That's pretty much all we wear. So that bit's right.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, having said that, so that's not only what cybersecurity is, right? As we all know that, there are various different domains within a cybersecurity. That's only one section or one part of it, which is like where you do hacking, or where you work in a red team, or where you work in penetration testing, for example. But there are other domains within cybersecurity, for example, security risk and governance, incident response, infrastructure, product security, DevSecOps, and so on and so forth. There are so many areas. So just try to find out what interests you, and then probably learn and try to develop knowledge in that area. That might help for beginners, I would say.
Sounds good. I think going into that question a little bit more specifically with regards to like what you need to know and work. I know there's a lot of talk about things like the OSCP or like security certificates and things like that. Have either of you, I guess, had experience with obtaining like cybersecurity certificates, and have they been useful in at work or obtaining the job at Atlassian or anything like that?
Tanvir, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I have taken quite a few certifications a few years ago, actually. So things like OSCP that you mentioned, and some SANS certifications, and CISSP, and so on and so forth, AWS. Those are really good. I would highly recommend that. But I think for university graduates, or at least for people who are studying in the universities, my advice is like, it's good to have those certifications, but had to make sure that, you have those technical fundamental skills that you really need, like, things like if you really want to go in the technical stream, so to say, like things like programming, networking, as in like IT networking, not the other networking. That is also important. But like things such as sysadmin courses, like, like Linux, or try to understand how Linux or Windows environment works, and so on and so forth. Like very technical skills will definitely is very fundamental. And then you add on to security certifications or security, courses if you desire, things like OSCP, which is a bit more advanced and is a bit tricky but first of all, you need to know about technology, right? So that's important and fundamental. If you don't know how a technology works, you won't know how to hack it, for example, right? So, for example, first is actually knowing the basics. Try to learn the security fundamentals, and then move on. Probably doing security certifications if you're willing to. Yeah.
Just to add to that, to what Tanvir said as well, I think, as university students, I think probably what's more important is to sort of get his teeth sunk into like work. Don't focus too much on security certifications. What's more important is experience. And I think a lot of our listeners will find that, when you're applying for jobs and roles, skills is one thing, but like experience is way more valuable than skills themselves. You can obtain skills and you can get certifications whenever, but like like Tanvir said, if you don't understand the technology and you don't have that experience, a certification is not going to mean anything. So, as a graduate or as someone who is trying to, get their foot into the door, really just focus trying to get that job first and get that experience. And, the certifications will come and follow after that. I know that I'm currently working on CISM at the moment, and a lot of some of the, some of the non-technical certifications out there, like your CISSPs, your CISMs, CSSAs, and whatnot, actually require an individual to have X amount of years of experience, before you can even apply to do those certifications. So, don't focus too much on certifications. Yeah, they're great. Go find certifications that are free. Like, there's an abundance of free websites out there that will offer free certifications, and, go and do those ones. And, to me, that shows dedication, that shows enthusiasm, and someone's behavior and someone's attitude is way more valuable, and experience is way more valuable than a certification, in my eyes anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think, as uni students, they're just getting started, I guess, to build up those fundamentals. And certainly, I guess a CS degree might help with those fundamental things as well. Could learn those after as well. But they're building up those fundamentals and then focusing on certificates afterwards, I guess, or even like when you're at work, maybe. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I just have one final question I wanted to ask. It's a bit more specific to what Atlassian does. As I think some people have heard, Atlassian's started this big shift towards software as a service and like cloud-based offerings. And this, I guess, might affect, the security concerns is involved with having data in the cloud and things like that. How has, while working at Atlassian, how has that move towards this cloud-based offering impacted the different security concerns that Atlassian faces?
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to talk to this just because, myself and our team, the trust and security team, does work very closely with our customers globally. And we do hear a lot of these concerns. So, Atlassian is helping more enterprises move critical workflows to the cloud every day. And we field a wide variety of questions to help them make that process, as easy but as well as secure as possible. The most common among them are worthy of consideration by any business with cloud aspirations. So, for example, we see a continuous pattern of customers becoming more, woke or more inept about data residency, for example, compliance, encryption of data, and so forth. So, it's our job working in security is to build trust and transparency through security. So, as most business challenges, large and small, they're usually solved not by individuals, but by teams. And it's been Atlassian's mission to unleash the full potential of every team across all organizations and all sorts throughout the world. And I guess in recent years, we've witnessed the growth in one of the most significant tools for team collaboration, which is the cloud. And Atlassian's embraced it wholeheartedly, and our cloud products enable teams to collaborate and innovate more effectively and scale quickly and focus more time and energy on their core mission. The cornerstone of our cloud applications and services is security, and our mission Atlassians depends on it. So we're pretty committed to ensuring the unfaltering safety and security of a customer's data, and to providing all our customers with the information that they need to understand and evaluate our security practices, our security posture, our policies for themselves, so that they have the right information and to make that sound decision when migrating to the cloud.
Sounds fantastic. I guess, Tanvir, do you want to say anything? Or?
No, I think Jodie is the expert over here. As she mentioned, she's advising the companies moving to SaaS and cloud-based. So I think she covered most of the points that you wanted to cover. So yeah.
I think that was a great summary. So I think that's all from me. I just want to say thanks so much for giving some time to chat about security with us. And I think a lot of university students or anyone listening to the podcast will find this really helpful for, I guess, their planning their careers moving forward, or thinking if they want to go into cybersecurity, maybe this will help sway them. Any last things? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, for sure. So just for all our listeners who are university students that are wanting to step into a full-time role, whether that's in professional services or whether that's in the tech space or whether that's in private or public sector. So at Atlassian, we obviously have our internship program as well as our graduateship program as well. I'd highly recommend all of you to go and visit that, which is www.atlassian.com/students. You'll find all updated information about upcoming applications for our internship program as well as our graduateship program. Also, as well, our human resources and talent community have created a new group called the Student Talent Community. And this is actually a really good opportunity for any individual that wants to get direct contact and response from our campus recruitment recruiters or our human resources recruiters. What I'll do is I'll post the link down below so that you can join that Student Talent Community, because if you have any questions that you would like to ask about the hiring process, or maybe getting some tips on interviewing and things like that, our team is more than happy to support you and your journey, whether that's with Atlassian or to provide any advice or tips or tricks for interviewing for other job roles as well. So I'll provide that information as well.
Fantastic.
And that's it. Thank you for having us, Matthew. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Matthew. Yep. All right.
It's a pleasure, and we hope that all of our listeners are now inspired to consider cybersecurity as a career, maybe.
And if you'd like to reach out to Tanvir and I, we're both on LinkedIn, so just feel free to follow us or hit us up. We're more than happy to answer any questions.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you.
Our next episode will be in 2 weeks' time. We'll be following the fortnightly schedule as we did last season. And until then, make sure to join us on our Slack community at slack.uqcs.org. My name is Matthew Lowe, and this podcast was created by the UQ Computing Society with gracious support from our industry sponsors.